I'm Anthony Fio, and you're listening to the Talk Carby to Me podcast.
So would you rate then chocolate being like your top 5 carb?
Absolutely not. I don't eat a lot.
No?
I don't eat a lot of chocolate. So we talked
Except for
about
Nutella.
yeah, yeah, that is true. But as far from a carbohydrate standpoint, that's not really where I'm going. Like so, if we talked about having a carbohydrate draft, so we can let it go right now. So let's do a top 5 draft, right? You're going first with your 5th pick. We'll go backwards.
Oh shit. Okay, wait, hold on. I need to finish my list. I need to keep thinking about it. Do you
You gotta
already
do it
have
on.
your top 5?
You gotta do it on the fly. Let's go.
On the fly? Oh no. Oh, there's so much pressure because I have to like be very wise about these top 5.
Why?
Because you only gave me 5. Oh, okay. I think I can do it.
You just have to give one. What's your 5th pick?
Okay, I would probably put fruit to be honest on there. I really like fruit. If I had to pick one fruit, it'd probably be an apple. I love apples.
So you're going with the apple.
Yeah.
I like it. With my 5th pick in the 2022 carbohydrate draft, I'm going to select bananas.
Ooh, you're also going for fruit.
Yeah, I don't like fruit enough to be like, haha, fruits here. Realistically, for me, it's bananas and pineapples are really the 2 main fruits I consume. But bananas, I eat like 2 bananas a day.
Yeah, I gotta be in the mood for them.
That's a weird thing. They're convenient. They're easy to eat. They're easy to find. They're not even real. They're not even real. Like
they're not even real.
Fun fact. Bananas, as you know them today, that's all genetically modified.
Oh, can I quickly interject? There's a new YouTube channel I found. It's about I think it's called something called like weird history food or weird food history or something like that. It is very interesting. It's like just random like facts and shit and history about food. I encourage to check it out.
I have to do that. Pick 4. What do you got?
Okay. I'll have to there's a very special type of salad that I have to put on here. And it's only available in Germany that I've so far found. I've once found in the United States, and it's a very special type of salad. It's basically translated to field salad. And if it's on the menu, like I have to get it. Obviously, it's mainly in Europe then, but it's like my favorite salad. It's like a mixture of like a butter lettuce, had a baby with like arugula. I don't know. It's amazing.
Is there glycogen in the thing?
In salad,
is there glucose in it?
A little bit.
All right.
It will get funner after this. We're starting from the bottom up.
Number 4, I'm going to have to go with potato / sweet potato.
Okay.
Because they're versatile. They're delicious. You can make like 100 things out of them. Everyone loves mashed potatoes. Everyone loves French fries. Everyone loves just a baked potato. You can get a twice baked potato. Like there's so many options that you can go with. Like that's my jam right there. That's a solid number 4.
That is a solid number 4. You can even make like gnocchi out of it. So you can go even down like the pasta route with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And honestly, you know what's a little fun fact about potatoes? They're actually like outside of protein, they're like the most satiating other food.
Yeah.
So you protein and vegetables, you'll probably not feel too hungry.
Yep.
You heard it first here. You heard it here first, folks. I can't speak English anymore. It's the baby. It's squishing my brain.
Yeah, blame the baby.
Dude, I can't sleep anymore.
All right. Awful. 3rd pick. You're up.
I would put in spaghetti or pasta or some sort. Spaghetti, pasta of any variety.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
My 3rd is applesauce.
Applesauce?
In the past year, I have been hammering applesauce like nonstop.
What kind do you get?
Whatever's available, preferably in a pouch. Like when I was running over the summer, running like a half marathon or something like that, every 3 miles, I'd stop and just down a packet of applesauce and just continue on running like that. It was amazing. I didn't
Like
have to choose.
the ones with like the bunny on in the front cover.
That's been one of them. So you got like the Go Squeeze ones, anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, it goes down smooth. It's quick. It's fast digesting. Like hits the bloodstream instantly. I just keep a box in my car, and I'm like, oh, I could take an applesauce real quick. Like I've stopped my workout and just downed a packet of applesauce and gone back to my workout.
Damn.
Yeah,
That's a very interesting one. I'm not gonna lie.
and
I
it's
did not
not.
expect that.
Yeah, it's not too heavy. It just does wonders. Judging from my list, you can see that I eat like a child sometimes, but
Do they come in flavors, or is it just always like one flavor?
they do come in flavors. Like you can get like the cinnamon one. Not really crazy about cinnamon. I just get straight up applesauce.
Right. Oh, interesting. All right, number 2. For me, it's gonna be chocolate. Anything chocolate. Chocolate cake, chocolate cookies, chocolate ice cream, chocolate milk, Nutella, all the chocolate.
Yeah, chocolate milk is a good one.
Yeah.
I'm going with chocolate milk as my second one.
Oh, okay. All right.
Chocolate milk is the greatest format of milk of all time.
You know, it is quite delightful.
Yeah. Strawberry's a sleeper, but you can't bang back strawberry every time. But chocolate milk, like if you start, you know how they say like if you make a protein shake with water and then you make it with milk, it's like, wow, this is like some gourmet shit.
Yeah.
You mix it with chocolate milk, you're on a whole another platform of enlightenment.
Yeah. You know what's really sad? So this year for like around the Christmas time when it got cold, like all I've been wanting has been a hot chocolate, right? Because it kind of falls in the same category. And I haven't had it yet. So I went to Trader Joe's and I bought like these like what I thought was like chocolate milk or hot chocolate sticks, but it was literal chocolate that you're supposed to melt into your milk. I was so disappointed. Like it's not the same thing. Like I had like the whipped cream and the whole 9 yards, right? Like ready to go. And it didn't hit it, so I have to probably just go to Starbucks and just get like a good hot chocolate.
You don't like the DIY chocolate?
See, like I don't want it to be with like whole milk. Like I want it to be with like an almond milk or an oat milk or something. So I figured I'd make it myself, right? Such a disappointment.
I like my milk from places that are supposed to produce milk.
Like cows?
It's like pretty soon we're going to be having like broccoli milk, like cauliflower milk.
Ew.
There's a lot of things there's just a lot of things that are unnecessary to milk. Like, what do we need oat milk for?
Yeah. Well, I'm lactose intolerant, so I'm genetically lactose intolerant on top of it.
As humans age, that's something that changes.
Yeah. But even as a baby, I was. But funny enough, while I've been pregnant, I've been able to have yogurt and cheese and all those things. So I've been kind of indulging a little bit without issues. Or the baby hates it the whole time and I have no idea. He'll let me know in a few weeks.
Like, dude, whatever you were eating was like fucking my stomach up.
I've been in pain for 9 months. Number 1.
What's your top carb?
Bread. Of all sorts. Yes. Like rolls, like baguettes. Like there's so many varieties of bread. I mean, maybe it's just like a pregnancy thing. I've had bread every single morning since I got pregnant. Every single morning. I love bread. I'm also German and we have a ton of bread varieties. So yeah, bread number 1.
I can appreciate bread. Bread, I just don't eat a lot of bread. Yeah, it's delicious. Did you see the baguette? It became like a historical figure.
Baguette?
Like the French baguette became like a part of history.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure how this works. So nor did I pay much attention to it past the headline in the first few paragraphs, but they made it like some form of history. Like it's a part of history now, as far as like just something that just is dominant, I guess.
Oh, how very fascinating. I have to check that out.
Yeah, very strange thing.
But also with bread, you can make bread pudding. You can make bread dumplings. Like I can go on. You can do a lot of things with bread.
Yeah, no, that sounds appealing to me. My number 1 is pasta, the entire category.
Oh, true. Okay. That's
so. spaghetti, penne. Like pasta is the most versatile carbohydrate in the game.
Hmm. I don't know. I don't know if I would classify pasta as the most versatile, but
What's more versatile than pasta?
potatoes.
There are more forms of pasta than there are potatoes.
Hmm. Okay, okay. So for pasta, you can make like what, lasagna. You can make gnocchis. You can make, right, like kind of go like alphabet soup, chicken noodle
Literally,
soup.
you can make anything with it. The best, in my opinion, the best way to eat pasta is, it's usually my post workout meal, and I prefer to have steak and like half a box of pasta just on the plate.
Is this
But
because you had this whole like meatball thing that you saw today?
no, no, but that was a fascinating thing. I wish that happened in front of me. I would have been in heaven. So what she's referring to, and apparently in Virginia, a tractor trailer like crashed or something like that, and it dumped like 40 pounds of meatballs all over the highway, and they had to close the highway for a little bit. So if you've been listening, one of my favorite meals is meatballs, spinach, and rice. So I eat a lot of that. So that would have been heaven for me. I would have literally pulled over and just started grabbing meatballs. Like, I'm helping. Like, where do you want me to put them? Like, perfect. They're going right in my car.
I'm surprised rice didn't make your list then.
Yeah, right. It's just rice. Like, rice is boring.
Yeah.
So I cook my rice and my pasta, my spaghetti the same way. I boil it in chicken broth. If you do that with spaghetti, it changes the game. It changes the entire nature. Like you will view the world differently.
Do you get the chicken stock, like the liquid chicken stock, or do you get like the bouillon cubes?
I've done both. The bouillon cubes are actually usually will taste a little better depending. But yeah, it's top 5. It hits you like an energy drink if it's post workout too, which is great.
Huh. Well, I'll have to try that. I've never cooked it like that before.
Yeah, the fascinating thing. So anytime I'm talking to people, I'm like, oh yeah, like spaghetti is like my favorite thing ever. Like, oh my God, but the calories and stuff like that. It's like, oh, and it's like, okay, so here's what I made. I took spaghetti and I boiled it in chicken broth, and then I took it out. I rinsed it off real quick, hit it with a little bit of butter, and then I put it on a plate. And they're like, wait, that's it? No sauce? No nothing else? Like, how do you eat that? And I was like, exactly. That's why you think pasta has calories to it, because you add all the extra shit to it. So
But what about your steak? Where does your steak go in all of this?
they just make the steak and it's just on the plate.
Oh, just like separate?
Yeah, I mean, I can't like I'll eat steak and I'll eat pasta.
Well, it's interesting.
It is also, it's very like humbling to see your plate when you've made half a box of pasta, like spaghetti, and then it just ends up on your plate. It's like, this is so much. I wasn't expecting this. And then you just down it.
Yeah, it is really hard to get your rice and pasta portions like perfect so that you don't have leftovers. Not that I mind leftovers of them, but like if you were trying to not get leftovers, it's hard to perfect the quantity.
Yeah, rice leftovers I can deal with, because rice you can just eat with anything. Like I eat rice with scrambled eggs. Like it looks like I'm a hibachi chef. I'll just throw a cup of rice in the pan, let it cook up a little bit, throw like 5 or 6 eggs in there. We're good to go. Or then you mix it with lunch, mix it with anything. I really don't eat my carbs in traditional ways. Like I like dry oatmeal into my shakes, like stuff like that. Like,
what a waste of oatmeal that always was for me.
You don't like oatmeal?
I do. I really like oatmeal, but I like it like, with like my milk, like my almond milk, usually, and oatmeal, and I don't know, some raisins. It's been lately my pregnancy morning cravings.
There you go with that raisin shit.
I know.
Raisins don't belong anywhere. Period.
I've learned people either love or hate raisins. There's really no in between.
I don't like raisins when they're in things that shouldn't have raisins in them.
Like oatmeal?
Oatmeal's one of them.
But what about oatmeal raisin cookies?
That's an acceptable use of raisin. Or like a cinnamon raisin bagel. Seems legit. But then you give me like a potato salad and it's got raisins in it. Or you give me like a pasta salad, it's got raisins in it. Or you have a salad in general and you put raisins in the salad. Like, why did you do that?
Okay, but how is an oatmeal raisin cookie different to oatmeal with raisins?
It's just the context in which it enters the realm of food. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like raisins. Like I like a broccoli raisin salad, or like I don't know. I do like raisins in my salads.
I can't.
That's really funny.
You
I've
know what I
met
like?
people like you before.
You know what I
You
like
guys
in
are
my
funny,
salad?
huh?
Salad. I like salad in my salad.
Anything else in your salad though besides just salad?
Yeah, chicken, black olives, peppers, tomatoes. Although I'm not the biggest fan of tomatoes in salads.
Mm.
Little cucumber, little crouton action, a little bit of feta cheese.
You know, I'll be honest about something about tomatoes. They taste different in the United States to me. Like in Europe, they taste good, and here there's like a certain taste I sometimes get, especially Panera tomatoes. I don't like them.
Tomatoes are interesting, right? So if you eat a raw tomato and you were to look at what it did in your digestive system and what you absorbed, and then you cook the tomato, it'll be different. And then if you puree the tomato, it'll also be different.
Yeah.
So when you look at like CoQ10 comes from, it's found in tomatoes. It's actually more prevalent in when it's processed and it's like pureed into a sauce.
Have you ever tried to make tomato sauce from scratch, like from real tomatoes before?
No, it's the effort. You lose me there.
Oh, see, it's really not that hard. I do it all the time. I just buy a few tomatoes, just puree them real quick, throw them in the pan, done. Um, maybe some basil if I'm being fancy. But it tastes different than normal tomato sauce. It just does. And it's not necessarily like even if you just bought like tomato, the canned tomato, it just tastes different.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I make a better Alfredo sauce from scratch than you'll find in probably any grocery
Mm,
store.
I believe that. The jarred stuff just isn't that good. It's
Yeah,
just not.
it can get by. You can get by with it though. I'm more so for me, it's a convenience thing.
Mm,
Like, it just doesn't, like, I don't care enough to like eat what I eat and be like, wow, that sauce really blew me away. It's just a formality, really.
yeah, I hear you on that one. Also, tomato sauce is a big trigger for heartburn. For people who suffer from heartburn, your tomatoes are not your friend.
Yeah.
But anyway,
So with the New Year's coming up, we did talk briefly about resolutions.
yes.
How do you think a person should go about setting the right goal for their New Year's resolution? So say their New Year's resolution is in 2023, I'm looking to be healthier. How
Mm,
do you think that should be framed? And like as far as like a goal?
yeah. Very good question. So, I mean, obviously you got to look at where are you at already, right? Like what are things that you're already doing great that you don't actually have to focus on or shouldn't be like the sole focus on. But I always say like pick like one thing that you really want to focus on. And if it's and try to just really work on getting that skill going. It might be like just drinking enough water, right? I mean, honestly, like drinking enough water is a hard enough task within itself for a lot of people. So, um, but it's really like looking at like where are you at and like what is it that like how do you want to feel. A lot of times people set resolutions because they're looking to feel a certain way, and it's like what are you looking to feel, and then what, and like basically like what are your steps in between there to get to that feeling from where you're at right now. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, a little bit. But let's say my goal is, it's like I want to lose weight in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? My goal is, because as trainers, you know what we hear all the time. I want to tone up.
Oh yeah.
Right. And then like what it was like, so what does like that conversation look like? What, personally, when someone tells me they want to tone up, it's insulting.
Okay.
It's
So
insulting because then I have to speak again to ask you what you mean. Like I have to
right.
ask you to describe like the toning thing. Like toning is not real.
Yeah. Usually toning means you want to gain some muscle. Like that's really what toning means. You want to shed a little bit of some body fat so you can actually see your muscles, right? But toning typically means you want to develop some muscle, you want to look sculpted. Most times people, when you tell them that, these same people that say I want to get toned, they say, but I don't want to get bulky, right? Like that just drives me crazy because then we got to debunk that whole thing. Like for if you are not like if you don't have any muscle mass, it's gonna take you forever to actually look bulky, if ever. Right? So like you're not gonna go from like you're not gonna look bulky in the next year unless you're doing steroids or taking some other stuff. Like if you're going from a sedentary person with like with not a lot of muscle you can't just look bulky in a year unless like you're that's all you're doing. It's your whole focus, right? Maybe that, and then you do some other stuff, right? Maybe then you could look bulky, but you'll likely look toned, which is the kind of what you're going for. So I treat someone that wants to look toned versus that wants to lose weight a little bit differently. If we're looking for weight loss, I'm usually looking to fit into a certain size clothing. So I kind of ask more beyond that, like what size clothing do you want to fit into? You know, like what are you trying? Like how much weight are you trying to lose? And then I always ask this question. I say, what if you got the look that you're looking for, but the scale, but the weight on the scale doesn't reflect that, right? So basically, we're trying to build some muscle into there. So you might say, hey, I want to lose 40 pounds, but you're really going for a certain look, not necessarily number on the scale. You're just using the number on the scale as a guiding point. But what if you're getting that look, but you might weigh more than what you originally planned for? Would you be okay with it? Most people are okay with it, right? So, um, yeah, I got a tangent there.
No, that's fine. Yeah, the bulking thing is funny. Bulking is always funny. It's really hard to bulk. Like it's not easy. We've talked about that before. I won't go too deep into it.
Yeah.
But if you are out there accidentally bulking because you picked up something fairly heavy, like let me know. Let me know your secrets. Also,
Right?
look at the average weight of a child that's between the age of like 1 and 5, and think of how many times you carry that child around a day, and then look at the weights that you use in the gym, and yeah,
Ooh,
you're
good
not gonna
one.
you're not gonna get it's true. It's like you have a kid how much does a 3-year-old weigh? Like what, 30 pounds?
I'll let you know in 3 years.
Yeah, we could Google it actually, right? What does the average 3-year-old weigh? And you'll see moms just like throwing this kid around, going to the store, picking it up. All right, come on, we got to go. Or like, something's going on and they got to take care of him. And they're just whipping him around. And then they go to the gym and they're like, oh, I can't go more than 10 pounds. It's like, I just watched you throw a person around.
Okay, so they're around 30 pounds.
No, I was right. So when it comes to toning is toning basically is you want to have the visibility of muscle, and you have two different ways. If you're really on the small side and you don't have much muscle, if you build muscle, you will have more visible muscles because you have more muscles. If you're on the heavier set side, if you lose fat, your muscles will show, right? And a big thing that people always forget is if you are obese, you got to carry it around, so you have a ton of muscle already.
You're wicked strong.
You just said wicked. And you're not from the Northeast. I'm impressed. Right? You have to, you either lose fat or you build muscle, right? So that becomes, okay, my goal is to tone. Okay, your goal is not to tone, actually. Let's get deeper than that, right? So now I have to ask you again, like, be more specific. And then you look at their body type and see where they're at. And that's kind of how you can frame that. I like to get away from the scale as well. And how I usually go about that is, and what you were talking about, making it seem like, oh, what if you look better in a picture, or you look better in a pair of pants or something like that. A lot of times I like to have people compare themselves to other people. Right. So if you could go to the store and purchase your dream body, whose dream body is that? And
I do the same. Yeah.
Yeah. And every time I ask someone, I mean, almost everyone has an answer. Like,
Totally.
and they'll just shoot right out of it. Like, oh, I want this person's body. I was like, great. So now that becomes the goal, and it's no longer about toning or anything like that. And it's like, okay, to get you to look like that, we need to get you to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And then it completely eliminates like the whole toning goal. That's not to get confused with, comparing yourself to other people and what they do and their successes and stuff like that. Like, comparison can be the thief of joy, but it gives you a benchmark as far as like appearance wise, right? So if like for me, it's Chris Evans in his role in Captain America, right? It's like, okay, that's what I would like to look like.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good one. I think also too, like sometimes, especially women, and they're like women from a certain generation, though, they get super focused on the scale. Like all they care about is a number on the scale. And it's like, I can dehydrate you. I can get you to that number on the scale if you want to.
we can induce diarrhea and you will lose. So my advice to people: get a goal, whatever comes to mind, whatever instinctually you feel will give you some kind of gratification, and then get very specific about it, right? So if your goal is I want to tone up, get specific like we just did, gave you the examples of find things that are not scale related to be able to get there. Right. So,
Yeah.
oh, I need to build muscle so I look like Chris Hemsworth, or I need to build muscle so I look like Serena Williams, which is another popular one and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, cool. And then make it a priority. Like this is the hard part of kind of the whole fitness journey thing. It's none of the work, it's none of the dietary stuff. It's just making it a priority. And if you look at what you do most often, a lot of people's priorities don't align with their goals, which is why January 17th is National Ditch Resolution Day. I looked it up.
Really?
I looked it up looking for my holiday. So on January 17th, it's Benjamin Franklin Day, which might be a dark horse for something to celebrate in January. But it's also Ditch New Year's Resolutions Day.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Right. So when your priorities don't line up, it's like, okay, it's not a priority with you anymore. And it becomes impossible to achieve that because it's not important. You got to like kind of list out the things that are important to you, and that in no particular order. Take a piece of paper and just write everything down that you feel is important in your life.
Yeah.
And then try to restructure that list. And then give it a couple days and stuff like that. And then look at your life and kind of observe, like look at it through the lens of you're making a list of what seems to be important, right? And I try to do this as far as like, what do I think is a priority in my life? And if I was watching my life as a movie, what does it look like is the priority in my life?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you'll see those lists don't add up. The sweet spot is when, for the most part, what it looks like is exactly what you think it is. And that's where you can kind of see going through that, right? So like for me, what I do for work is probably pretty high up there in my priority list. It's probably only second to me actually working out and exercising. To be quite honest, my workout on the priority list comes before everything else.
Yeah.
That goes on in my life. Mostly because obviously I'm the main character in my story. That's probably where I get the most enjoyment. It's going to come before anything else. It's going to come before going on a date, hanging out with someone. If we're going to go do something that's not really vacation related, and it's like, oh, let's go like day drink and have lunch and like stuff like that. Like, no, like that's not going to line up with my priority. My priority is to have a good workout. If I go do those things, that's going to sacrifice that thing, right? So for other people, it might be work, or you might have a hobby or a skill or something like that, and you can kind of see once you start looking at it through that lens what is actually affecting where you get with it. And a lot of times it's basically priority based.
Yeah, I actually love that you brought that up because that was something I wanted to talk about a little bit too, is that a lot of times we don't, when we're committing to goals, we don't really rank them necessarily well in terms of how important it is to us, or we realize what we have to sacrifice in order to get to where we want to go. So like how Anthony said, like he prioritizes workouts before even a date. Like, are you willing to sacrifice, maybe postponing a date, postponing hanging out with your friends, postponing, I don't know, like sleep even, right? Being sleep deprived. Are you willing to sacrifice those things in order to make your goals realistic, or like come into reality, make them actually happen? And that's the behind the scenes that we don't see of people that accomplish really amazing things. Similar to people in the bodybuilding community, we don't see the sacrifice that they have to make to say no to things in order to get to where they are. So when people look at them with fascination, it's like, you could get there too, but are you willing to say no to things? Like if you're trying to lose weight, for instance, let's say you're trying to lose weight. I like to split up, just so we clarify it, I like to split up how much weight you want to lose within a given time frame and hope it's realistic. So usually 1 to 2 pounds per week is like a realistic goal. And you want to lose within that time frame, you're going to go out to eat. You are going to go out and hang out with your friends. Are you going to be that person that says no to alcoholic beverages in order to save on calories? Are you that person that's willing to be a little bit hungry in order to keep the weight off or to continue to lose the weight? Are you willing to eat foods that you may not have chosen originally just so you don't choose higher calorie meals, right? So those are the sacrifices you have to make in order to achieve your goals. And the more intense your goals are, right, the more intense your effort has to be to get there. So if you're willing to sacrifice.
Yeah, sacrifice is huge.
I don't think people sacrifice enough, to be honest. And I think it's kind of like one of those things where like there's this whole movement of, well, you got to take care of yourself and just live a little and YOLO and all those things. And then before you know it, it's like you're sacrificing on yourself.
I think that one's like a fine line. Like with the whole YOLO stuff and like little littles, right? So like if someone saw my diet and we followed it for 30 days, there'd be like some people, and you didn't see me and you just saw only what I ate. Some people would like, there's probably some people who are obese that'll have better looking days than I do, honestly. Like I'm not shy about it. Like there are just days I will just, like, you can criticize me to the cows come home, I will just take back a double quarter pounder with cheese from McDonald's and a 20-piece nugget, like, and fries, and like that's just a Wednesday, like for dinner. But it's surrounded with other healthy behaviors, right? So for me, I'm not too into my physical appearance in terms of like, oh my God, I have to look a certain way, right? So this time of year, I'm gonna, I'm bulking, looking to add a little bit of muscle, right? So the calories help, although they're dirty calories technically. But it's one of those things where it's like I don't sacrifice a lot of those like little things, mostly because my goal doesn't really require me to. Like it's not like my goal is I want to have abs. Like I want to have the most shredded six pack of all time. If I did, I wouldn't, I'd have to clean some stuff up because at some point I'm going to reach a point where that stuff is going to hinder me.
Well, you'd have to make sacrifices.
Yeah, right. So, and then that's right. So you can very easily still enjoy the things that you enjoy. The reason that and a lot of people are like, oh, well, you're young and it's your metabolism. It's like, no, I built the reality, which is the construct of my life, my behaviors and everything that I do. It's built in such a way where I can do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm well aware that like, I know that I'm going to be like, oh yeah, whatever. Like I just happen to be craving Zaxby's. Like, sure. Happen to be craving fast food. Great. Like,
right.
Go for it. Right. Maybe that's probably like 10% of my diet, but it's like everything. It's built in a way where like I have that window, and like most people have that window. The issue is most people don't create enough wins in their routine or their daily life to allow for a couple like of those days and moments where it's like, haha, pizza. Like, yes. Like when I go home for the holidays, I mean, I usually only eat pizza. Legitimately, I like my entire diet is usually only pizza.
Yeah, and we should also probably clarify for listeners too. It's like the reason why you can do all those things and still look the way you do is because of how often you exercise, how much you move in a day, and also how much muscle mass you have. I think that's like really important to note. Because if you didn't have all those things, you definitely wouldn't have the body that you have.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And like, and so just because I said, if you looked at my diet and what I do and like stuff like that, like without seeing me, and then you see me, not that I'm like this incredible like ode to human physique, but what the reality that I built is more than half my weight is muscle. I exercise 6 times a day. I mean, 6 times a week, excuse me. Sometimes a few of those days I'll exercise more than once. I get about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I drink plenty of water. I take, my protein intake is really good. So sometimes some of the other stuff might not be that great, but my protein intake is always going to be top notch as far as like quantity and stuff like that. So like I've built it in a way where like I can get away with like a meal being, crazy or ridiculous or something like that.
Yeah. So gaining muscle mass is the key to eating whatever you want, folks.
Yeah. And it's not even one of those things where it's like, you'll never be able to get to a point where like realistic, feasibly you can outwork a bad diet. However, if you really wanted to, you could outwork a bad diet. Yeah. You would just be miserable and you'd probably break down and, your body would eventually get tired, but you could realistically if you wanted to.
Yeah. So what would you do if you let's say like you're reaching a plateau? What do you do to shake things up?
So it's like with any science project, right? So like if we've got a plan, we've got this hypothesis and we're going to lay out the method, right? And let's say we're trying to lose weight. So here's the plan. What are the results? Let's say after a week, like you said, that 1 to 2 pounds is what we want. We get a pound a week, right? The next week, we get a pound a week. Great, awesome, you're consistent. Where most people kind of screw up is they see a little bit of success and they start changing stuff, right? So now let's say we'll go two examples. Example one, I've had two back-to-back weeks of hitting the goal weight, and now I'm like, I'm gonna work out an extra day. I'm gonna do something more. Like I'm gonna add more stuff in. I'm gonna subtract other things that I shouldn't be eating, stuff like that. You have like this snowball of momentum building, right? And now you, instead of just having like, okay, I've changed my diet, I'm gonna keep everything else the same, right? So one variable is changing. Now you've changed four variables. And let's say you get in, and then let's say you hit a plateau. Now you don't know which variable to change for the most part, right? So let's say, 2 weeks, right? Let's say you go, but let's say you don't have too many variables going on. You have those 2 weeks, you back to back success, and it's flat the next one, right? Which would be a plateau. Plateau, if you don't know, is just a point at which you stop either gaining or losing. Once you're there, how long have you been in your plateau? A lot of times, if you just stay the course, the next week you should see a difference. Sometimes your body is just not going to be your week or anything like that, or there could be other changes going on, various other reasons. But go for one more week, see it again, right? So now week 3 we're flat. Week 4 do it again, we're flat. Okay, just change one single thing, right? So it could be I'm going to take 2,000 more steps a day and see what that gets you, or I'm going to drink a protein shake a day if you weren't doing it, right? So just add one simple thing and then see where that's at for a week. Typically, what you have to do is when you look at like where plateaus come from, plateaus happen because your body metabolically adapts, right? So it wants homeostasis, right? So if I'm 200 pounds and I eat like I'm 180 pounds, from a caloric need standpoint, eventually I'm going to be 180 pounds. When I reach 180 pounds, because I've been eating like I'm 180 pounds, I'm going to stop losing weight. So then I would have to lower that again and eat like I'm 170 pounds, and eventually I'll drop to 170 pounds. It's a slight oversimplification, but technically that's how it works, right? The issue is if I'm 200 pounds and I want to be 170, and I'm eating that little, eventually, like there's going to be a lot of change. Like you might not, your appetite like just might go bonkers on you, right? Because you have to restrict so much. You might get to a point where it's just uncomfortable to be hungry and starving all the time, right?
Yeah, and then we start slipping backwards, which is
And then
sad.
and then you're like, oh, this isn't working, and you're plateau, and then you start eating again and stuff like that, right? So for me, plateaus, a lot of it comes down to how long have you been in the plateau? What are the variables that you've been changing and that you've expected them to change, right? So if I want to lose weight, and the way that I'm going about losing weight is I'm going to start working out, and I'm not losing weight, or I stop losing weight, the first thing that should tell you is you're working out. Something in your workout needs to change, right? Because you have to have some progressive overload to a degree, right? So it's like, okay, cool. Then look at your workout. What am I doing? Like, can I work out an extra day? Great. Can I work out a little bit longer? Can I add steps to my workout? And also look at like the intensity of it and stuff like that. Like, are you working out hard enough? Are you working out appropriately? And things of that nature. And like the little things like that, if you approach them, you can find it, you can break your plateaus and stuff like that. In my experience.
Yeah. I think also too, it kind of depends like how you just like mentioned, like what kind of plateau are we facing, right? Are we facing like usually the weight loss plateau that people focus on? Are you no longer able to gain more weight, right? Like, let's say you're trying to bulk up, right? Are you stuck there? And I think it's important to look at like what is your workout like. That's definitely a huge factor into it too. What can you switch up there? But also looking at like what's your diet like and what things can you adjust there to shake things up again. So I work a lot with people at the current moment that are sedentary and trying to lose weight, which is a little bit of a different challenge for me than people that I used to work with who were active and trying to lose weight. So if I have someone that I'm working with and I can tell they're starting to hit a plateau, and I kind of don't really worry about a plateau until it's been like 3-ish weeks. Like if we didn't make any traction in 3 weeks, then I'm like, all right, what's going on? And by traction, I mean like, yeah, like your weight might be stagnant, but but if you feel like your clothes are not fitting looser, then like we're hitting a plateau. Like if everything like circumference measurements, um, and your weight are all staying the same, then we got to look at, okay, we got to somehow drop the calories a little bit more, or we've been dieting long enough, you need to go a little bit on a diet break. And then we go back into losing weight. And that always shakes things up, where I say, hey, take the weekend, take a couple of meals, and just kind of like, don't worry about dieting right now. Don't go crazy, right? Don't go overboard. Just have like a normal meal. But I don't want you to stress about the dieting factor of it. And then let's come back again on Monday and let's start again. And usually that always shakes things up a little bit. So people usually freak out around that a little bit. But that is, yeah, it just depends how long you've been dieting. So you've been dieting for like 2 or 3 months. I like to do that every so often.
Yeah. A good rule of thumb too, like let's say you're someone that's like, I'm not going to work with a trainer. I'm not going to do a program or anything like that. I got this. I'm going to lose 10 pounds. I did this years ago and stuff like that. It's like, cool, go start your journey. According to you, you're going to eat some way that you seem to see that seems to work for you. You're going to go exercise in some way that's going to be something that you've experienced before. Right. So let's take those two things right now. Let's say for the past year, you didn't do any of those stuff, but you're kind of familiar, right? So you've changed these two things. Cool. Weigh yourself on day 1, go do that plan for 2 weeks, and then weigh yourself on day 14 at that point. If your weight is up, you are not in a calorie deficit. If your weight is lower, you are in a calorie deficit. Congratulations, right? So if the goal is to lose weight, you need to be in a deficit. If you get to the 14th day, right after writing down everything, it becomes very blatantly obvious. Okay, I'm eating too much food. 2 things need to happen, or don't think of it that way. You have too many calories in your diet as far as what's left after, the net expenses of energy and stuff like that. It's like, okay, what are the next steps? Okay, if I'm trying to lose weight, I need to bring that number down. It's going to happen one of 2 ways. You can either eat less or you can work out more, period. And that's kind of how you take it from there. And then you take a look at it for the next 2 days. And it's like, okay, boom. Now my weight's dropping. Eventually you reach your plateau, depending how long you've been in this like kind of phase. If you've been in this phase for about maybe 2 months or something like that, take a few days, don't diet, don't do anything, eat like you normally would, and then come back to it on that next week, rinse, repeat. I like to start, my big advice is start with more movement before you start subtracting food.
Yeah, there's a certain point, like I'm not a big fan of 1200 calorie diets. I'm not a big fan of 1300 calorie diets. The only reason why I would ever allow someone that I'm working with to drop their calories that low is because I know that they're underreporting their calories. So like I know you're not actually eating 1200 calories, right? Like I know you're probably eating 1500 calories. So that's the only time I'm really kind of okay with it. But like to Anthony's point, like looking also to like at your movement and also looking to at like what do your calories consist of. Sometimes like we've been under eating on protein and we start losing too much muscle too. And that's not fun and that's not cool. So that will just slow your metabolism down even more. So just making sure you're having enough protein in your diet too is really important in your weight loss journey.
Yeah. So that's also going to go into when you look at like goals and stuff like that, you look at like programming. So programming is one of the things in the fitness industry that I find absolutely hilarious.
Hilarious.
Right. So let's talk about like what programming is. Programming is basically I want to gain 5 pounds of muscle. The program is going to be the workout prescription from your professional. Or it could be like, if you read Men's Health or if you have a trainer or if you saw some trainer online, like programming is basically just what's the plan. It's the blueprint for your exercise workouts. I think it's funny because like it's only relevant and this is my opinion. And again, this is my experience and some people might feel differently. Programming only matters for like 10% of any of the people you will ever work with. I program for 2 people of my 15 clients.
Who would not benefit from programming? I didn't know you had this stance.
I'm saying it like if when you look at like, oh, I have to write a program for this and I have to write this best program and that best program and that best program, right? So everyone can benefit from a good plan. I'm saying like to the degree in the industry that it's like overemphasized. Most of your people, right, when you, especially when you're like in person and stuff like that, most people don't care, honestly. Like they care more about what's going on at their daughter's dance recital than they do about what the next exercise is. They just need you to point and have them go and like kind of get in the right way. I think it's such a crazy focus point. So like you could have the most boring program of all time and compare it to the best program ever invented, and like, oh my god, like this is the one plan, and you can get results out of both of them like fairly easily. Like, should you have an idea of the direction of like what the overarching themes are in each workout and things like that? Absolutely. But to the degree that it is, like, as far as like, it's not like you're creating a Bible for it. You know what I mean?
So what are your goals then with the other clients, like the ones that you don't program for?
It depends why they came to me. Right. So a lot of it is, what are we, and like you see me train, I train basically movement patterns, right? So I feel like shit. It's like, okay, cool. So I need to fix you, right? So a lot of that goes into how does your body function? How do you use your body? Like, what do you have in certain places? So it's, what I'm saying is, it's not like I have to sit here and write out this like immaculate plan and stuff like that. It's like, well, what if you write out the immaculate plan and then the first exercise, they look like total shit and you have to adjust it a little bit on the fly and stuff like that. So for a lot of it, it's just to get them to move better and to get them to be stronger. And how they get stronger, obviously they get feedback from the external world and stuff like that. Obviously if you eliminate pain, right, there you go. But it's also one of those things, like you can have like this huge like program that's like, oh, like, yeah, this was the thing that kind of saved it. But a lot of it is just like you just moved overall more in general. And so it depends on it. Like, so someone like me would need a program because my goals are super specific, right? I want to gain, 8 pounds in the next 3 months. Right. So, okay, I need a roadmap there, but I also have no like faulty movement patterns, right? So if I write the best program to build 8 months or to build 8 pounds in 3 months, and then I give it to someone who blew out their rotator cuff,
Right.
You know what I mean? It's now that program is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Like, what needs to be the focus is you need to move around, but we need to increase that range of motion, get you healed up and stuff like that. Right. But and that's more so what I'm going on. So like, to the degree of it, like, so it's important, but it's only important for like 10% of the people. For most people, they'll get an extreme benefit from just moving around.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more maybe like German or analytical in that regard. Like I'm a very numbers driven person, and so are my training sessions too, and so are my training sessions with my clients, right? So it's not that I'm not looking at like how they're coming in my sessions and stuff like that. It's definitely important. Like, how did you sleep? Are we injured? Are we like, what's bothering us? What kind of pains are we feeling? That definitely like all factors into that session. And I do, we do have to substitute out things on the fly. But I'm a very like numbers driven person. Like I want us to see progress. Like I want us to be able to squat heavier, which I know is also part of your thing, but like I'm very methodical then with my programming. I do always have someone on a program of some sort.
Well, we definitely have a plan. Like, so my programs are just very, very basic, especially for in-person stuff. For online clients, it's a little different. But for in-person stuff, it's, can you deadlift? No, why not? Okay, I need to fix that. And like the progression becomes, the program is going from some form of a basic hinge into a deadlift. You know what I mean? And that becomes like kind of more so like the guide there, as opposed to like having it be analytical and like written out and stuff like that. And yeah, it's also like, if like a lot of times, you look at like efficiency and stuff like that. If you're out here writing a program for every single one of your clients, mostly like a lot of clients don't actually adhere to them when you take them home with them. Like they'll do it when you're with you, and that's the more so the context that I'm.
Like their home programs.
From.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
well, that's a little
yeah.
different. Oh, I'm talking about like my in-person training programs. I'm like, I am methodical about that.
No, I'm not methodical. I'm not methodical at all.
Yeah.
I'm methodical with about 2 people, and for the most parts of it, like, we'll make progress and stuff like that. Now, if I'm giving advice to people and it's like, you kind of know what you're doing in the gym, and your best plan is to go out and I need a plan of action, then yeah, you should be tracking stuff because you should know. Like you want to be able to know like kind of like where you're at and stuff like that. But it's when you look at like I don't know, it's just a stance that I have just from just my experience working with people and stuff like that. It's not the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love a good program. And I love having a good program for my clients too. So, different training styles
Yeah.
for sure. Um yeah. I get like super pumped when I see people. I'm like, you started, with this and this, and now we're able to do this. Like, it's so exciting. Like, you started squatting only with the bar, and now look at us, 185 or whatever it is, right? It's like,
But do you need a piece of paper to have that conversation?
I
Do you
mean,
need
yeah,
it? Do you need it written down to have that conversation? That's what I'm saying.
I mean, all my stuff is logged. Every single person I've ever worked with, all their files, all their numbers, all their squats, like it's all logged. Like, yeah, it's very like it's programmed, it's periodized, it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you get what I'm saying?
I mean, I get what you're saying, definitely. Like, I definitely think you can still, especially someone that's brand new and starting out, or someone that you're working with brand new who isn't used to your training style. I definitely think that you can make and see improvements without having a set program necessarily that's like perfectly periodized and all those things. But yeah, I always still have a certain flow and method to my madness. Even though it might not always look like it, there is always a flow and a method to my madness. Yeah.
Yeah, mine is very simple. It's just very simplistic. It's depends what part of the body. It's either be front half, back half, or top half, lower half. Do something that looks like a squat. Do something that looks like a squat on one leg. Do something that looks like a deadlift. Do something that looks like a single leg deadlift, and then maybe hit a couple isolation exercises, and that's about it. And then what happens within those will kind of vary. Like what do they look like? How are they executed, and things like that. And
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't know. It's funny that we're having like this conversation because I'm very particular with the exercises that I choose for my clients. Like I'm very specific. Unless of course they can't do them, then we switch things up to make it appropriate. But like I'm very specific about the exercises that I choose and all of that.
yeah, I'm not very particular as far as like what I pick. There's definitely exercises I like.
Yeah.
But again, it's a lot of it's going to vary based on the person, and it's going to vary on their posture and stuff like that. Like what I pick and like what I go with. I'm oversimplistic.
Yeah. And again, I think a lot of this, like we're talking about like a generalized human being right now, right? And a lot of training is like, especially personal training, it's like who do you have in front of you?
Yeah.
That factors like so many things are a factor to that.
Yeah, for sure. Now if you're like an athlete, you're going to be a competitive bodybuilder, you want to compete, stuff like that, you definitely need a program, and you definitely should follow a program. And for those people, right, I'll have programs for them. But for your daily lifers, Gen Pop, how I want to move better, feel better, look better, right? A lot of times we'll have the idea, and I teach them the idea and the skills and stuff like that. And obviously, like I have, like I'm aware of like what the weights are and like what we're using and stuff like that. But a lot of, I mean, like half the stuff I do, it's not even weight related. That changes a little bit, but then you can get those, like we talked about this before, as far as like what do I have access to now?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, since you mentioned posture, shall we go down the posture rabbit hole?
Yeah, we can. So someone asked me like posture and stuff like that. Like, what does it look like? How do you approach it? And like, what are some things you can do now? Everyone has bad posture, right? You find some people like, wow, you look great. Like you're really solid. But if you really nitpick, you can find something in their posture. And it's one of those things where it's like, I personally think it's something that's focused on too much.
Is posture.
Yeah.
Interesting. Coming from someone who uses posture a lot as like a selling tool, shall we say?
Yeah. It's so what I like to, when I look at someone and I assess like their posture and stuff like that, right? So I'm looking at what does your neck look like? What do your shoulders look like? What do your hips look like? Knees look like? Ankles look like? Right? That's the, the by the book. You know, it's like what happens there, right? And then a part of that it becomes, so it's like, okay, judging by the book, you have terrible posture. And it's like, okay, it's like, do you really believe you can fix their posture? And look at the majority of folks, right? Their posture is dictated by how they interact with gravity, the planet, their life, their external feedback sources and stuff like that, right? If you have someone who drives 10 hours a day, you're never going to get them to be upright and have this like super proud chest, right? However, what you can do is you can teach them a dynamic posture. And what that dynamic posture is okay, here's what we're looking for, like, and then over time you have that muscle memory and you can move into that dynamic posture. So me, I have very forward shoulders because I play video games, I do a lot of stuff on the computer, I used to drive a lot and things of that nature. I also have a very strong back. Like, you know what I mean? So like it's but I'm not just gonna sit standing. I'm not going to have like this perfect posture. Like once I leave and I go into relax mode, I'm now back into the same behaviors that got me into this resting posture, if you will. However, when I work out, I can assume a dynamic posture. So I can, or I'm moving somewhere, I'm going for a run, or I'm walking outside and stuff like that. Like I know the posture. I've trained like the actual posture to get into. It's just like getting into the right shape and stuff like that. But for a lot of people, like some of those things don't change because you can't really change the lifestyle too much that is going to keep it in there. So if you're working out for 1 hour a day to compensate for something that you do 8 hours a day, right? There's a big difference there. And it's like, there's not too much of it there. However, you can learn through exercise and training those parts of the body that are shown to be weak through your posture. You can kind of have, you know what you should be feeling as you're doing the thing that's hurting your posture, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the coffin with saying that, or definitely say that hit the whatever. A lot of things that we do are always happen in the front of our body, right? Like everything we do, like we tend to have to like round our shoulders for and stuff like that. Like everything happens in the front of our body, and we don't really do enough, pulling action typically. So for a lot of people, like training the posterior muscles are going to be super, super helpful just overall in everyday living and your posture and sitting a little bit better and moving a little bit better too, just because everything we do is in the front and we don't open up enough, you know what I mean? And train the back as much. We're doing a lot of pushing motions, pushing away or front thing. Am I making sense?
No, I get you. It's the same. Another example too is like if someone has really, really tight hips, and I've seen this with a lot of clients that I've worked with and stuff like that. You come to me, your hips are really tight. We hang out. I have a very specific set of drills that I use to kind of get your hips and your hip orientation going in the right way. Right, boom. We're right back. We're in more of like that neutral, ideal position. We go through our session. You're going to feel great for a couple hours, and then you're going right back to whatever the hell you were doing before that put your hips tight. Then you come see me again, and it's rinse, repeat. Over time, you can kind of you can change it a little bit, right? So obviously, if you have tight hip flexors, you have weak hamstrings. That's usually the go-get there. So if you can stretch your hips, make your hamstring stronger, a lot of times you can change that orientation a little bit. But a lot of times you'll see you're never going to get it to a point where it's like, it's completely undone, especially if the reason that it was undone was because they spent, 9 hours at a desk and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You can get them to move better. You can get them to feel better. They know how to activate. They know how to get themselves to the dynamic posture, but it's going to revert right back to whatever was kind of giving them that.
Yeah. It takes a long time to kind of help with all those things.
Yeah. And now if you have like bad posture because you had a traumatic injury, obviously you can as you fix the injury, the posture should improve. But everyone's kind of going to have the static posture and this dynamic posture. And a lot of it is the dynamic posture is kind of what you're looking to achieve.
Yeah, totally. Love it. Love it. Fix your posture, folks. But fix why your posture is bad to begin with too.
Yeah. So if your posture, like, again, if you're hunched over all the time and I'm like, oh, hey, like, retract your scapula, like, bring, stand up a little taller, and you have no idea what that means, then you have to learn and you have to exercise to kind of figure that out. And you can fix it a little bit, but it's not going to completely undo that, but you'll be taught how to undo that. And you can achieve your dynamic posture, not just when you're in the gym and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'm going with that stance. That's probably the last like 30 minutes of me talking is probably gonna be something that like 90% of people would all disagree with. But yeah, that's just how I approach it and stuff like that. And,
well, always interesting conversations and debate, that's for sure.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
You want to wrap here?
Sure. I didn't want to say anything. We covered everything.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna wrap here. That's been a good one. I had a pleasure as always. A little unorthodox, especially in what we were talking about here. So definitely, if you enjoyed the podcast, shoot us a message. If you have questions that we didn't touch on, if you have more questions based on what we touched on and things like that, feel free to reach out.
Agreed.